Lisa's legs felt like they might give out at any moment as she pushed through the security gate of the human mining colony. The guard had barely looked up from his screen, waving her through with disinterest. Maybe he saw refugees every day. Maybe he just didn't care anymore. Either way, Lisa was grateful he hadn't stopped her. In her arms, bundled in what used to be her jacket, lay Ember. The dragon hatchling weighed almost nothing now. Lisa could feel every ridge of the creature's spine through the fabric. Ember's scales, which had once shimmered like polished emeralds under the station lights, had faded to a dull, lifeless gray. Each tiny breath rattled in her chest, shallow and weak. Lisa blinked back tears. She wouldn't cry. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance. The colony stretched out before her, a sprawling mess of prefab buildings and construction zones. This was Frontier Station 7, one of the newer human settlements on the outer rim. It wasn't pretty. The air smelled like metal and diesel fuel. Dust hung in the atmosphere, kicked up by the constant building and drilling. But humans were here and humans meant hope. They had to. An hour ago, she had stood in the station administrator's pristine office, begging for help. The man had looked at her with something like pity, but his answer had been firm. Budget constraints, he said. Interspecies feeding regulations, he explained. Insurance liability, he added. The words had blurred together into one long rejection. Before that, she had gone to the Draken Refugee Center. The woman there had actually cried when she turned Lisa away. They had been out of proper dragon food for 3 weeks. 16 hatchlings had already died. Ember would be the 17th if Lisa couldn't find another option. She had sold everything she owned to buy passage to this station. Her family's heritage crystals, her mother's ceremonial robes, even the star charts that had been passed down through 4 generations. All of it gone. Traded to smugglers and merchants for the promise of a place where dragons could eat, where refugees could survive. But the universe didn't care about promises. Lisa's boots crunched on gravel as she approached the construction yard. The noise hit her like a wall. Massive drilling machines chewed into the rocky ground. Welding torches sparked and flashed. Human workers in bright yellow hard hats shouted to each other over the din, coordinating the assembly of enormous habitat domes. These were the structures that would house thousands more settlers, expanding the colony deeper into the frontier. Humans built fast. Humans built everywhere. It was one of the things the rest of the galaxy both admired and feared about them. Lisa scanned the chaos looking for someone, anyone who might listen. Her eyes landed on a man in a supervisor's vest. He stood near a half-assembled dome framework, gesturing emphatically at a group of workers. Even from a distance, she could see he was in charge. The way he moved, the way the others responded to him, it all screamed authority. She had to try. Her legs trembled as she walked toward him. Ember shifted weakly in her arms, letting out a tiny whimper that broke Lisa's heart. The hatchling was barely conscious now. They didn't have much time left. The workers noticed her first. A few stopped what they were doing, nudging their companions and pointing. By the time Lisa reached the supervisor, a small crowd had formed around them. "Please," Lisa heard herself say. Her voice came out hoarse and desperate. "Please, I need help. My dragon, she's starving. She's dying." The supervisor turned around. He was a big man, broad across the shoulders with the kind of build that came from years of hard labor. His face was weathered and tan, marked by sun and wind and time spent in harsh environments. But it was his eyes that caught Lisa's attention. They were sharp and blue, the kind of eyes that didn't miss details. His name tag read Tom Foster in bold letters. Tom's gaze moved from Lisa's face down to the bundle in her arms. She pulled back the fabric slightly, revealing Ember's small head. The hatchling's eyes were half closed, her breathing so faint it was almost invisible. For a long moment Tom just stared. Lisa couldn't read his expression. Was it disgust? Annoyance? Pity? She had no idea what humans thought about dragons. Maybe he would turn her away like everyone else had. The workers around them had gone quiet. Even the machines seemed to fade into background noise. Lisa felt her last thread of hope beginning to fray. Then Tom did something unexpected. He crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with her. Up close, she could see the concern in his face. He reached out slowly, carefully, and brushed one calloused finger against Ember's snout. The dragon didn't even react. Tom's jaw tightened. He stood up, his decision made. "Follow me," he said simply. Without waiting for a response, he turned and started walking toward a low building at the edge of the construction site. Lisa saw a sign above the door that read, "Mess Hall." She stumbled after him, hardly daring to believe this was happening. The human workers parted to let them through, their faces curious but not unkind. Someone held the door open. As they stepped inside, the smell of cooking food hit Lisa. Her empty stomach clenched painfully. She couldn't remember the last time she had eaten properly. But that didn't matter. Nothing mattered except Ember. Tom led her past long tables where off-duty workers sat eating and talking. Conversation stopped as people noticed the dragon. Lisa held Ember closer, protective. "Sit," Tom said, pointing to a table near the kitchen. Lisa sat. She watched as Tom disappeared through the kitchen doors. She had no idea what he was planning. She had no idea if this would work. But for the first time in weeks, someone was actually trying to help. That had to count for something. Lisa sat at the metal table, her hands trembling as she held Ember close. The cafeteria buzzed with activity around her. Human workers filled the space, some eating quickly between shifts, others lingering over coffee and conversation. The smell of hot food made her dizzy with hunger, but she pushed the feeling aside. Her own needs didn't matter right now. Several workers had gathered around, keeping a respectful distance but clearly curious. Lisa could feel their eyes on her and Ember. She had heard stories about humans, about their unpredictability and strange customs. Some species in the galaxy feared them. Others admired them. Lisa just hoped they might help. The kitchen doors swung open and Tom emerged carrying a bowl. Steam rose from whatever was inside, and the rich smell of cooked meat filled the air. He walked over and knelt down beside her chair, setting the bowl on the floor. "Wait," Lisa said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but human food is toxic to most species. Dragons need very specific proteins. They're imported from specialized farms on the Draken homeworld. The molecular structure has to be exact or it can damage their organs." Tom looked up at her, then back at Ember. The hatchling lay motionless in Lisa's arms, her breathing so faint it was terrifying. "Let me try something," Tom said. His voice was calm, confident. Before Lisa could protest further, he dipped his finger into the brown liquid. It looked like some kind of meat stew, chunks of beef floating in thick gravy. He brought his finger close to Ember's snout, letting a single drop fall onto her nose. For a moment nothing happened. Lisa held her breath. Then Ember's nostrils flared. It was the first real reaction Lisa had seen from her in hours. The hatchling's eyes, which had been glazed and half-closed, suddenly opened wide. They were still dull, still sick-looking, but there was awareness there that hadn't been present before. A tiny forked tongue flickered out, tasting the drop of broth. What happened next made Lisa gasp. Ember lurched forward with more energy than she had shown in days. Her small head plunged into the bowl, and she began eating with desperate hunger. The sound of her lapping up the stew seemed impossibly loud in the suddenly quiet cafeteria. "No, wait, stop," Lisa stammered, trying to pull Ember back. "This could kill her. We don't know what this will do to her system." But Tom gently caught her wrist. "Give her a minute," he said softly. Lisa watched in horror and disbelief as Ember devoured the entire bowl. The dragon's small body shook with the effort of eating so quickly. Broth dripped from her snout. She licked the bowl clean, then sat back, her sides heaving. The workers around them had gone completely silent. Everyone stared, waiting to see what would happen. At first, nothing changed. Ember sat there, looking confused and exhausted. Lisa felt her heart sink. What had they done? What if she had just let this human accidentally poison her dragon? But then she noticed something. A faint shimmer across Ember's scales. At first, Lisa thought it was just the cafeteria lights playing tricks. But no, it was real. The dull gray was brightening just slightly. Color was seeping back into the dragon's skin like water soaking into dry earth. "Oh my stars," Lisa breathed. Within minutes, the transformation became unmistakable. Ember's scales shifted from lifeless gray to a pale green. Then darker green. Then the vibrant emerald that Lisa remembered. The hatchling lifted her head, looking around with clear, bright eyes. She chirped, a sound Lisa hadn't heard in weeks. The cafeteria erupted. Workers hooped and clapped. Someone laughed in pure astonishment. Others crowded closer, wanting to see the miracle with their own eyes. "How did you know?" Lisa whispered, staring at Tom in amazement. "How could you possibly have known that would work?" Tom shrugged, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Worked on a ranch back on Earth before I came out here to the frontier. Raised all kinds of animals. When I looked at your dragon, something about her just reminded me of the reptiles we had back home. The way she moved, the structure of her body, even the way she breathed. I figured it was worth a shot." "But the science," Lisa said, still struggling to understand. "Every expert says cross-species nutrition is impossible without exact molecular matching. Dragons are supposed to need very specific imported proteins that cost a fortune. How can simple Earth stew work when million-credit specialty food doesn't? Sometimes the experts are wrong, Tom said simply. He reached out and scratched Ember under her chin. The dragon leaned into his touch, purring like a tiny motor. By evening, the change in Ember was nothing short of miraculous. She was sitting up on her own, moving around the table, investigating everything with renewed curiosity. Her scales gleamed under the lights, healthy and vibrant. She had even grown slightly, filling out in places where her bones had been jutting through her skin. The dragon chirped happily and nuzzled against Tom's calloused hand, her tail swishing back and forth. Several workers had brought scraps from their own meals. Ember sampled each offering with enthusiasm, apparently finding all Earth food equally delicious. Lisa sat there, tears streaming down her face. She had been so certain she was going to watch Ember die. She had prepared herself for that loss, steeled herself against the grief. And now, here was her dragon, alive and thriving, saved by simple human food and a foreman who had trusted his instincts. Tom noticed her tears and handed her a napkin. "She's going to be okay," he said. "You saved her life," Lisa managed to say through her crying. "I don't know how to thank you. I don't have anything left to give. I sold everything just to get here." "Don't need thanks," Tom said, watching Ember play with a piece of carrot. "Just glad we could help." Around them, the other workers smiled and went back to their meals. But Lisa knew this moment would stay with her forever. The impossible had just happened and nothing would ever be the same. Over the next week, something changed in Tom. Lisa noticed it right away. The foreman who had casually saved Ember's life became completely fixated on understanding how he had done it. He started showing up at odd hours, asking questions about dragon biology, taking notes on everything Ember ate and how she responded. On the third day, Tom borrowed the station's bioscanner from the medical bay. The device was meant for human health diagnostics, but Tom had convinced the head doctor to let him use it for research. He ran scan after scan on Ember, collecting data while the dragon happily munched on pieces of grilled chicken. Lisa watched him work with growing curiosity. Tom would feed Ember something new, then immediately scan her, recording how her body processed the proteins. He tried beef, pork, fish, eggs, even cheese. Ember loved all of it. With each meal, she grew stronger and more energetic. The results seemed to fascinate and frustrate Tom in equal measure. Late at night, Lisa would find him in his small office, staring at screens full of genetic data, his forehead creased with confusion. "This doesn't make any sense," he muttered one evening, not even looking up when Lisa entered. She set down a cup of coffee beside him. She had learned that humans ran on coffee the way ships ran on fuel. "What doesn't make sense?" Tom gestured at the holographic display floating above his desk. Complex molecular structures rotated in the air, color-coded chains of genetic information that meant nothing to Lisa. "Everything," he said. "None of this should work, but it does." "Can you explain it to me?" Lisa asked, pulling up a chair. "In simple terms?" Tom rubbed his eyes, then turned to face her. "Look at this," he said, pulling up a new screen. Two genetic maps appeared side by side. On the left, that's Ember's DNA. On the right, that's the genetic structure of Earth's extinct dinosaurs. Creatures that died out millions of years ago on my homeworld. Lisa leaned forward, studying the patterns. Even to her untrained eye, the similarities were striking. The structures looked almost identical in places. "Your dragon shares 70% genetic compatibility with Earth's ancient reptiles," Tom said, his voice quiet with amazement. 70%. That's not just similar. That's practically family. "That's impossible," Lisa breathed. The implications made her head spin. Dragons evolved on the Draken homeworld. We have fossil records going back millions of years. They're as native to our planet as we are. Tom leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. "Yeah, well, so is feeding a supposedly obligate alien carnivore chicken nuggets and watching her thrive, but here we are." He zoomed in on specific gene sequences, highlighting matching patterns. "This level of compatibility doesn't happen by accident. It suggests either the craziest parallel evolution in galactic history, or..." He trailed off, staring at the data. "Or what?" Lisa prompted. Tom turned to look at her, and she saw something like wonder in his eyes. "Or dragons aren't alien at all." Before Lisa could respond to that impossible statement, Ember herself interrupted. The dragon, who had been napping in the corner, woke up and bounded onto Tom's desk. She had grown substantially in just 1 week. Where she had once fit in Lisa's arms, she was now the size of a large dog. Her scales gleamed like polished gemstones under the office lights. Ember grabbed a turkey leg from a plate on the desk and crunched into it happily, sprawling across Tom's paperwork like she owned the place. Lisa couldn't help but smile. The transformation was remarkable. Ember moved with confidence now, with strength and vitality. She was twice her original size and still growing. The construction crew had completely adopted her as their unofficial mascot. Every morning, workers would bring treats from their own breakfasts. Frank from the welding team always saved his bacon. Betty from logistics brought fish fillets. Old Dennis, who ran the heavy machinery, had discovered that Ember loved scrambled eggs and brought them every single day. The dragon followed the workers around the construction site like a scaly puppy, watching them build and learning to avoid the dangerous equipment. She had even started helping in small ways, using her surprisingly strong jaws to carry tools or drag cables. Tom had set up a small bed for Ember in his office, but the dragon rarely used it. She preferred sleeping near the workers' barracks or curled up next to the warm generators. The humans had built her a little shelter near the mess hall, decorated with signs that read Ember's Den and Dragon Crossing. Each meal seemed to make Ember stronger, faster, more vibrant than any dragon Lisa had ever seen on the Draken homeworld. The dragons back home had always seemed sluggish, almost sedated. Ember was vital and energetic in a way that felt right, natural, like this was how dragons were supposed to be. Tom continued his research obsessively, building a comprehensive database of every meal and every scan. He sent reports to Earth Science Institutes, though he didn't tell Lisa what responses he received. She noticed him having quiet conversations with other humans, showing them data, discussing theories. The peaceful routine they had fallen into felt almost too good to be true. Lisa had found work helping in the mess hall, earning enough to pay for her tiny room in the station's residential sector. Ember was healthy and happy. Tom's crew treated them both with warmth and acceptance. But Lisa knew better than to trust peace. She had learned that lesson the hard way. On the 8th day, the alarm started blaring. Lisa was in the mess hall when the sound split the air. She looked out the window and felt her blood turn to ice. 3 Draken warships descended through the atmosphere, their distinctive silver hulls unmistakable against the orange sky. Lisa recognized the markings immediately. The purest faction. The ones who had driven her from her homeworld. The ones who believed that dragons should only be raised by pure-blooded Draken families, following ancient traditions. They had found her. And they were here for Ember. The Draken ships appeared without any warning. One moment the sky was clear, and the next, 3 sleek silver vessels were descending through the atmosphere like hunting birds dropping on prey. Their engines roared, drowning out the construction noise. Workers across the site stopped what they were doing and stared upward. Lisa's hands shook as she watched from the mess hall window. She knew those ships. She knew those markings. The silver and black insignia of the purest faction gleamed on their hulls. These were the same people who had driven her family from their homeworld. The same ones who had declared her unworthy of raising a dragon because she refused to follow their rigid traditions. They had found her. After everything, after running halfway across the galaxy, they had tracked her down. The ships landed on the colony's main pad with precision. Draken enforcers emerged, their ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine. At their head walked Commander Valen, a tall figure whose very presence demanded attention. Lisa recognized him immediately. He had been the one who signed the order exiling her family. Tom appeared beside her at the window. "Friends of yours?" he asked quietly. "The opposite," Lisa whispered. "They're here for Ember. They'll take her from me. Not if I have anything to say about it." Within minutes, the station administrator had called an emergency meeting. Lisa found herself standing in the administrator's conference room, Tom beside her, facing Commander Valen and his enforcers across a long table. The administrator, a nervous man named Mr. Peterson, sat at the head looking like he wished he was anywhere else. Commander Valen placed a data pad on the table. His movements were precise, calculated. "I have legal documentation here authorizing the immediate surrender of the dragon hatchling currently in your possession," he announced. His voice was cold, formal. "The creature will be returned to proper Draken custody for raising according to our sacred traditions." Lisa felt her fists clench. "Ember almost died following your traditions. Your proper food was killing her." Valen's eyes fixed on her with disdain. "You were always weak, Lisa. Your family's bloodline was corrupted by outside influence. Feeding a sacred dragon human food." He said the word human like it was something dirty. "It's a desecration. It's heresy. You've violated every principle our people hold sacred." "That dragon was dying until we fed her," Tom said, his voice cutting through the tension. He stepped forward, putting himself slightly in front of Lisa. She's healthier now than she was before. Look at the medical scans. Look at the data. Your proper diet was starving her. Valen turned his cold gaze to Tom. You are not of the Draken blood. You are human. You have no say in this matter. This does not concern your kind. It concerns me plenty when someone wants to take a healthy animal and put her back on a diet that nearly killed her. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat nervously. I'm afraid, Mr. Foster, that galactic law is quite clear on issues of cultural custody. When it comes to species-specific care and traditional raising practices, the originating culture has legal authority. The dragon must be returned to her people. Lisa felt her heart breaking. She looked down at Ember, who had been hiding behind Tom's legs this entire time. The dragon sensed danger. She pressed herself against Tom's boots, making small frightened sounds that Lisa had never heard before. Over my dead body, Tom said quietly. The words were soft, but there was steel in them. The office door burst open. Tom's construction crew filed in, still wearing their dusty work clothes and hard hats. Frank, Betty, Dennis, and at least 20 others packed into the room. They formed a wall between the Draken enforcers and the dragon, their faces set with determination. We're not handing over that dragon, said Betty, Tom's second in command. She was a tough woman who ran the logistics team, and right now she looked ready to fight. She's part of our crew now. You want her, you'll have to go through us. Commander Valen's hand moved toward the weapon at his belt. Several of his enforcers did the same. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Lisa could feel the violence hovering just beneath the surface, ready to explode. Mr. Peterson looked like he might faint. Please, everyone, let's not do anything rash. Tom raised his hands, stepping forward. Wait. Just wait. He looked directly at Commander Valen. You say your way is proper. You say our way is wrong. Fine. Give me 48 hours. Let me prove our feeding method is superior. I'll present scientific evidence, medical documentation, everything. If I'm wrong, if your traditional diet is actually better, we'll stand down. We won't fight you. And if you're right? Valen asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Then you leave. Both of them. Lisa and Ember. You leave them alone and you don't come back. The room went silent. Everyone waited for Valen's response. The commander studied Tom for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Lisa could see him calculating, weighing his options. He had the legal authority to take Ember right now. But he also had 20 angry human workers ready to fight, and humans had a reputation across the galaxy for being unpredictable in combat. Finally, Valen nodded slowly. Very well. You have your 48 hours, human. But understand this, when you fail, and you will fail, the dragon will be taken. No arguments. No resistance. And this one, he gestured dismissively at Lisa, will face charges for her crimes against our culture. 48 hours, Tom agreed. That's all I need. Valen and his enforcers turned and left, their footsteps echoing in the hallway. But Lisa knew they weren't gone. They would be waiting, watching, counting down every minute until they could take Ember away. Tom immediately turned to his crew. All right, people. We've got 2 days to prove the impossible. Let's get to work. Tom hadn't wasted a single minute of those 48 hours. While Commander Valen and his enforcers waited at their ships, Tom had been working around the clock. Every scan he had run on Ember over the past week, every genetic analysis, every feeding result, every piece of data had been carefully documented and transmitted to Earth's Xenobiology Institute. He had even sent physical samples of Ember's tissue on the fastest courier ship available. Lisa barely slept during those 2 days. She spent every moment with Ember, holding the dragon close, terrified that this might be their last time together. The construction crew rallied around them. Workers brought food, offered encouragement, and promised that they wouldn't let the dragon take Ember without a fight. But Lisa knew that wouldn't help. You couldn't fight galactic law with good intentions. The response from Earth came 36 hours into their deadline. Tom's communicator pinged while he was in his office, surrounded by data screens and empty coffee cups. He read the message once, then again, his eyes widening. Then he smiled, really smiled for the first time in 2 days. Get everyone to the main conference room, he told Betty. All of them. This is going to be good. An hour later, the station's largest conference room was packed. Representatives from a dozen different species had gathered, drawn by rumors of what was happening. The Draken enforcers stood along one wall, Commander Valen at their center with his arms crossed, looking supremely confident. Lisa sat in the front row, Ember curled in her lap. The dragon had grown even more in the past 2 days, and Lisa could barely hold her anymore. Tom stood at the front beside a holographic display projector. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his jaw, but there was energy in his movements. "Thank you all for coming," Tom began. "We're here to discuss the custody of this dragon and whether she should be returned to traditional Draken care. I promised Commander Valen proof that our methods are superior. I'm going to deliver more than that." He activated the display. A holographic figure appeared, a woman in a white lab coat standing in what looked like a research facility. Her image flickered slightly due to the quantum communication delay, but her voice came through clear. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Rachel Torres from Earth's Xenobiology Institute. We've completed our analysis of the samples and data provided by Mr. Foster. What we've discovered will fundamentally change our understanding of galactic history." The room went silent. Even Valen leaned forward slightly, interested despite himself. Dr. Torres pulled up genetic maps. Double helix structures rotated in the air, color-coded sections highlighting specific sequences. "These are the genetic structures of the dragon specimen, compared with Earth's extinct theropod dinosaurs. After extensive analysis, we can state with absolute certainty that dragons are not alien species. They are Earth species, descended directly from creatures that disappeared from our fossil record approximately 65 million years ago." Gasps rippled through the room. Representatives whispered to each other in a dozen different languages. Lisa felt her breath catch in her throat. "That's absurd," Commander Valen snapped, stepping forward. "Dragons evolved on the Draken homeworld. We have millions of years of fossil evidence." "Actually, you don't," Dr. Torres replied calmly. "Your people have dragon remains that date back millions of years, but if you examine the geological record carefully, they appear suddenly in the fossil record with no evolutionary predecessors. They didn't evolve on your world. They were brought there." She pulled up another display, this one showing timeline comparisons. "The evidence is conclusive. Someone, an ancient species we haven't yet identified, took these creatures from Earth during our Cretaceous period. They modified the genetics slightly, enhanced certain traits, and seeded them across multiple worlds in this sector of the galaxy. The Draken homeworld was one of those locations." Tom spoke up. "This explains everything. Why Earth food works for dragons. Why they have 70% genetic compatibility with our ancient reptiles. They're not aliens at all. They're ours. They're from Earth." The administrator, Mr. Peterson, looked like someone had hit him with a hammer. "But the myths," he stammered. "Human cultures have dragon legends going back thousands of years." Dr. Torres nodded. "Exactly. We believe those myths aren't just stories. They're genetic memory, cultural echoes of a connection we never understood. Somehow, buried deep in human consciousness, we remembered these creatures. We drew pictures of them, told stories about them, even though they had been gone from Earth for millions of years before humans even evolved." "This is fascinating from a scientific perspective," Valen said coldly, "but it doesn't change the legal reality. The dragon is currently in Draken custody according to galactic law." Tom smiled. "Actually, it changes everything." He stepped forward, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Dragons are Earth fauna. That makes them legally the responsibility of Earth and humanity. And Lisa here," he placed his hand on her shoulder, "along with all Draken refugees, are welcome to asylum on Earth territory, with full access to our agricultural resources." Mr. Peterson's jaw dropped. This changes everything. Ember is a repatriated Earth species," Dr. Torres declared officially. "And humanity formally claims custodial rights to all dragons who wish to return to their homeworld. Any species harboring Earth fauna has the right to petition for sanctuary in human space." Commander Valen stood abruptly, his face dark with rage. He looked like he wanted to argue, to fight, but he had nothing. The law was clear. If dragons were Earth species, the Draken had no claim. He stared at Tom with pure hatred, then turned and marched out of the room. His enforcers followed. Within hours, their ships lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Lisa sat there, stunned, holding Ember close. It was over. They were safe. 3 months later, everything had changed. Lisa stood on the observation deck of the newly completed Habitat Dome, watching Ember soar through the artificial sky. The dragon had grown magnificent. She was now larger than any dragon Lisa had ever seen on her homeworld, her scales brilliant green and gold, her wings powerful enough to create wind gusts that rattled the dome's windows. The construction site had been transformed. Where machinery and dust had once dominated, now there were gardens and habitats. 50 more dragons had arrived with their refugees, all of them thriving on Earth food. The dragons flew together, played together, healthy and strong in ways that seemed impossible. Tom joined her at the window, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He handed her one. "You know what the craziest part is?" Tom said, watching Ember perform aerial loops with 3 other dragons. "What?" Lisa asked, smiling. "Turns out humans have been connected to the universe this whole time. We just didn't know it." He grinned. "Bet the galaxy never saw that coming."